Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. It's literally the two Backyard Brothers for the next 15 or 20 minutes. We'll have a third one join us in a few, um, but he's currently held up by something, and Yancey is feeling sick today, so Yancey couldn't join us for the second consecutive week. But we will somehow manage with half of us for a little bit. But and because it's the two of us, we're going to jump right into basketball and talk about the crazy amount of trades that we've seen over the last couple of days before the trade deadline. It's like everybody got up and moved one spot to the left. uh,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, everyone's moving. So let's talk about some of the big ones. There's way too many to actually talk about, but there's a couple of huge ones. And so obviously the first one that we got to mention that everyone heard about is the three. Technically, it's a three-team trade, but really it's just two: the Lakers and the Mavericks swapping some players. Uh, the Mavericks getting Anthony Davis, the big unibrow man, and Max Christie, the rookie from last year, and the Lakers are getting none other than Luka Doncic, and as well as Markieff Morris and Maxi Kleba. The Jazz in that trade get Jalen Hood Shafino and a couple of draft picks, but well, the Mavericks also get a first round pick. So obviously this shook up a lot of things. But what do you have to say about that? What does this trade mean?
I have quite a few different reactions. Um, that most of them are all critical of the Mavericks. Um, but it's they did get lots of draft picks, included in this, and some young players. And but I guess okay. I tried to start off with something positive, and that was it. So we'll just go straight into the negative. One, Anthony Davis is almost 10 years older than Luka. I don't know how much he's a great player. He's still one of the best players, but I don't know how many more years of NBA excellence he has left in him. I'm there's a lot of players that are in their twilight years that are playing fantastic. We can look at so many players. Hopefully, he will in 5 years from now he'll still be playing the Cowboys, but it's hard to bet on that. And so I don't know what the long term plan is, and if the plan was short term, it doesn't make any sense either. Luca got this team to the finals last year. I don't understand. Now, moving on to the second thing, again, critical of the Mavericks. In the last, I think, 4 years, the Mavericks fumbled away Jalen Brunson because they didn't want to sign him to a $55 million deal, and instead he signed $200 million with the Knicks. And look what he's doing. They fumbled away Porzingis, who won a championship with the Celtics last year, and now they just fumbled away Luka. Not to mention a half a dozen others that they've done, and so it's very interesting to see all these changes there that are happening, and so critical there. And I think the last comment here, maybe this one actually just slipped away. Um, nope. All right, your
Okay.
reaction.
Okay. Um, the story that I read talked about culture from the general manager's perspective from the Dallas Mavericks. He said we're trying to build a winning culture and just people who will work hard, people who are want to be there, people who are doing all the right things. And it wasn't explicitly said, but it was implicitly implied that Luca didn't fit that culture. Um, I don't know if that's all the above ground stuff, and there's a lot of underground stuff that Luca maybe didn't want to be there, and maybe Luca wanted to team up with LeBron over in LA, or just wanted to play in a bigger market. I mean, Dallas is a pretty big market anyway, but um, so I don't know. Um, it didn't make a lot of sense either, and it's just I hated it just for the formulation of even more super teams. In this case, it's in some ways the NBA is just becoming all star game light,
Yeah.
and I don't like it. There's tons of good players, and so almost every if the great players were distributed equally across the NBA, every team would have one, a couple would have two. That's the way that it would work. But instead, they're all distributed among about six teams, and that's just I don't like it. It's the same problem that exists in college football with the SEC and the Big Ten, is that you have power among 6 to 10 somewhere in there are teams, and the rest of them are just fodder. And I don't like it at all.
Yeah, the NBA tried really hard to you know, have parity and fair competition by creating this salary cap and revenue sharing. But what happens is the business opportunities available to a player in, say, Los Angeles are a lot better than a player in Charlotte, or New Orleans or Utah. It's just different, that a player can say, yeah, I got 2 hours. I'll go film a commercial real quick. Give me my bag of money and we'll do it. That can't happen for a player in Portland or Utah or Minnesota. And so it's different that these big markets really, especially the giant cities, really tend to dominate the player market because of those opportunities, and it's unfortunate. And maybe that was a driver in what sent Luka to LA, but like you said, I think that the GM is got a little bit frustrated with some behavioral issues and decided to make a big splash. And I don't know if Luka's happy or sad about it. That's his business, and I guess we may I'd say we may see it reflected in his play, but if what we were seeing last year was sad Luka, then
Yeah.
yeah.
Is Anthony Davis playing in the game behind you?
I'm not sure yet. I don't think so. I haven't been watching all that regularly. I
Yeah.
don't think so, but we'll keep watching.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe he is actually.
All right.
But keep watching.
Okay, the second big trade that want to talk about, involved three teams as well, but this time really involved three teams. San Antonio Spurs getting De'Aaron Fox from the Kings, along with Jordan McLaughlin, but he's a bench player. De'Aaron Fox is the big name there, going to the Kings. Meanwhile, going to the Spurs. Meanwhile, the Kings get Zach LaVine from the Bulls. Along with a bunch of draft picks. Let me count these: 1, 2, 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks that the Kings get, along with Zach LaVine and Sidi Sissoko. I don't know how to say that name. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bulls get Trey Jones and Zach Collins and Kevin Huerter from the Kings. And from a few other players, as well as a first-round pick. So big, just in number of people moving places there, and a lot of impact players. What do we think about that one? And we did mention last week. We did mention last week that we had heard that De'Aaron Fox could be moved.
Yeah. I think it's a win for the Spurs. I think De'Aaron Fox is going to work out there. He had his debut last night and had, I forget exactly what it was, but something like 22 and 11. He had a big debut and a win. So I think that the Spurs win that one there. I think the Kings, with all the picks that they get, it's hard to draw that up as anything but a win. I don't think Zach LaVine fits there. I don't think he fit in Chicago or in a lot of other places. And so, but I still think the Kings win that. The Bulls, I don't know, maybe I see that team as they've had so many fantastic pieces and haven't been able to execute on it that it's hard for me to see where success is going to come from them. So it could, but I don't know.
No, I agree completely with that one. With that analysis, Zach LaVine, I haven't paid enough attention so far this year to know how much he's played, but he's a walking cast. He gets injured uh, more than most players. And so I don't know how healthy he is. When he's healthy, he can be really, really good. I don't know if that's been the case this year or not. I know he's recovering from a major injury uh, last year or so. But I love all the draft picks that they're getting, and they're doing their best to remain competitive while trading away a big piece like De'Aaron Fox. While meanwhile, the Spurs get a point guard they've really lacked. I mean, for a while they had Trey Jones, and they have Devin Vassell, and they have a couple of other guys like that. But De'Aaron Fox is a star. Meanwhile, the Bulls get just the essentially the cast-offs from the other teams. Kevin Herter is a good player. He's a good shooting guard. He can make a lot of good shots, but that was on a Kings team mainly that he was getting some open ones. He's not going to get as many open shots for the Bulls. He's not going to be quite as impactful there.
Yeah, with the Bulls, they've collected a lot of really great role players, and maybe they're hoping that with this huge collection of role players that they'll have team basketball with everybody getting 15 points across 6 players or something like that. Is maybe what they're hoping for.
Yeah. Okay. Trade number 3, the third big trade. This involved 5 teams, but I'll get to it here. So we talked about it last week as well. Jimmy Butler deciding not to travel with the team to essentially be a hindrance to the Miami Heat. So finally, he's gone from South Beach and is trading coasts. He's now over in Golden State, joining Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler with the Warriors. Meanwhile, the Miami Heat get Andrew Wiggins from the Warriors. They get Slow Mo Anderson, and they get PJ Tucker. And I was about to say the Lions. The other Detroit team, the Pistons, get Dennis Schroeder and a couple of second round picks. The Utah Jazz get Josh Richardson, used to be a somewhat of a good player at that time. And the Philadelphia 76ers get cash. So do the 76ers win that trade? So
I mean, you look at it from my perspective, I'd take the cash. So I'm not disappointed about how the Warriors shake out. Actually, we can look at Jimmy Butler's attitude. Maybe a change of scenery will help that. But I mean, I would trade Andrew Wiggins for Jimmy Butler every day, all day. If I can get the Jimmy Butler that I'm used to seeing, which he's aging, but I think Jimmy Butler on a bad day is better than Andrew Wiggins on a good day. And so I think that one shakes out positive to the Warriors. For the Heat, the PJ Tucker and Slow-Mo Anderson fit into the Heat style of play perfectly. That is a puzzle piece that absolutely clicks. That's absolutely, that works.
They're both very good defensive players into a defensive system. So
yeah. So I think that absolutely works. Andrew Wiggins is a bust. I don't know. He may be able to fit into it, but ultimately he's a bust, unfortunately. Then I think that it's just kind of a trade in assets for the other teams.
Okay. One more big one I wanted to talk about before mentioning, really, just a couple of smaller ones. This was a 4-team trade as well. The Washington Wizards, the horrible Washington Wizards, traded for Chris Middleton from the Milwaukee Bucks, along with a couple of pick swaps and $1 million cash. The New York Knicks get DeLon Wright. If I could call out Cody, your former Utah Ute, DeLon Wright goes to the New York Knicks. And the Bucks get Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards, who we heard was probably going to be moved as well, wasn't a good fit. And so another Utah player. So this is the Utah trade. DeLon Wright going to the Knicks and Kyle Kuzma going to the Bucks. Jericho Sims as well, and a couple of picks. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs are the 4th team, and they get Patrick Baldwin Jr. from the Bucks. So not quite as big as the other ones, but Chris Middleton was a name that stuck out, and that in Washington getting rid of the players that obviously weren't helping them win any games. So
Yeah, I don't think Chris Middleton's going to add to their win count all that much. Just because it's the problem's not shooting and offense. It's the problem is defense and turnovers. And so yeah, ultimately I'm sad to see Chris Middleton, who's had his entire career in Milwaukee. We're talking 12 years or something at this point, leave from there.
Well, he was drafted by the Pistons and spent a couple of years there first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But but then spent the rest of his career in there. Yeah. I'm just going to mention a few that stuck out. We don't have to talk about them unless you want to stop and talk. The Kings traded for Jonas Valanciunas. They're getting the big man from wherever he's from, Lithuania, I think. The Raptors picked up Brandon Ingram from the New Orleans Pelicans for Kelly Olynyk, who goes to New Orleans, along with Bruce Brown. Two pretty good players being traded for Ingram there. Again, stop me if you want to talk about any of these, but Reggie Jackson goes to the Wizards as well from the 76ers. DeAndre Hunter goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. In return, the Hawks get Karis LeVert and George Niang and a couple of first-round picks. So pretty big deal there.
The only one I'll comment on is with Brandon Ingram. 5 years ago, I thought that he was exploding. And, he's with Zion having all of his injury issues, I would have thought this would have become Brandon Ingram's team. And he's unfortunately not been able to meet up to expectations there. And so with him traded, especially with so little value with Kelly Olynyk, sorry for the insult, but that's unfortunate.
Yeah. We talked about it last year when Zion got hurt in the playoffs, and the Pelicans they lost that game, but Zion had like 50 points before he got injured, and then without him, Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum both just imploded. They couldn't do anything without Zion there, and so it seems to be the same right now. The LA Clippers get Bogdan Bogdanovic and a couple of 3 second-round picks from Atlanta. For Terrence Mann going to the Hawks along with Bones Highland. Marcus Smart goes to the Washington Wizards from Memphis. I don't think he's pleased about that. And I would very much expect him to be waived very soon from the Wizards and become a free agent. But and that's the last one that I'm reading. Yeah.
I imagine he went to, Memphis with this, with the hopes of, being able to compete for a championship there. And then things kind of imploded with Ja, and then they haven't really been able to do much. Memphis is playing great now, but he particularly is not really a part of that. And so, yeah, he'll get waived and be able to sign wherever he wants. And I kind of hope that, he'll either go back to Boston or, maybe sign as a bench player in OKC, where he played his college ball at Oklahoma State.
Cool. Cody, obviously we're talking some basketball here. Do you have any comments about the trades? We talked about the big 3 before you got here. Obviously Luka to the Lakers and De'Aaron Fox over to the Spurs. A couple of those big ones before you joined.
Nothing substantial or significant like you guys would have said. First off, my internet's kind of being a little cruddy, so if I back out or something like that, that's why. Other than that, I don't really know. I mean, other than the big 3 names you mentioned, Luka and Jimmy Butler, and the other one I already forgot. Other than those specific names, other than that, I don't really know the people, so I don't really know what they're actually getting in the trade. I just know it's significant. I know that Dallas is probably pissed about it, that the Heat's probably pissed about it, and so that I expect. Other than that, who's winning what. You don't really know, but the Lakers getting Luka, and they already have LeBron and they don't have Anthony Davis. That's what they traded, right?
That's what they traded. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the Lakers are gonna be scary, really scary going forward.
So I to make one more comment about the Luka thing, something I thought before was I watched some ESPN commentary, which I haven't watched in a little while, but some ESPN commentary in which I forget exactly who it was. It might have been Bill Simmons was talking about the history of this trade, and like he basically said, I can't think of a bigger trade that's ever happened in the NBA. And he brought up some history and basically said the only thing comparable was when the Golden State Warriors traded Wilt Chamberlain to the 76ers. Says that might be the only comparable trade. That Chamberlain went on to win championships with the 76ers and do everything great that it is. And that's probably the most comparable to the Mavericks traded away a player who's probably going to win MVPs, probably going to win championships. This is one of the most defining players of this generation, and he's 24 years old, 25 years old. There's the very definition of a franchise player. To compare that to the Wilt Chamberlain trade is probably comparable. The only other trade comparable, again, these are things that happened 50 years ago or more, was Kareem going from Milwaukee to LA. This is the kind of this is the kind of caliber that we're talking about.
That's good analysis, I think, because I kept trying to think, and I kept coming up with these big names that got traded, but almost all of them were traded much later in their careers, after they were done. Like the Boston Celtics trading for a couple of people. Actually, I don't. Yeah, the trade. Wait, was Kevin Garnett a free agent, maybe, or did they trade for him? I can't remember. So.
I think he was a free agent, and they traded for Ray Allen.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, but all of the other ones that I could think of ended up like when Hakeem Olajuwon played for the Raptors for a couple of seasons, but he was like 40. So it's a little different when Michael Jordan played for the Wizards, but again, not trades. It's just when you see these guys and that from iconic uniforms that played for other teams. But it's always happened later in their careers. Even LeBron.
Maybe a couple examples, and these maybe aren't quite as good, but the Hornets trading away the draft rights to Kobe Bryant, or when the Magic drafted Chris Webber and then traded for Penny Hardaway. These are examples these are different. They're examples. I did see a funny comment that basically said the Atlanta Hawks won the trade in an unexpected come-from-behind victory when they traded Trae Young for Luka Doncic. All of a sudden the Hawks are the winner of that trade.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay. We'll wait for Cody to get set up here. I think he's back. Yep, there you are. So let's. I don't have my agenda in front of me, but so we're going to go in a different order, probably a little bit, because we are going to do just a really quick minute, Cody, that I know you know of, but you don't know that you know it because I haven't talked to you about it yet. So I know this because your wife, Cody, talked to my wife about this, and then we watched it too. It's the Celebrity Bakeoff with DK Metcalf and Arik Armstead and Tony Gonzalez. So when I'm about to say we, but when I say we, I mean my wife Ashley. But is a big fan of the British Bake Off, and I watch it when it's on as well. It's fun to watch, and I like baking. I like cooking, so that's all kind of part of it. But this is our replacement for the memory, by the way. Right now is just talking about this particular thing, but it's kind of fun to see these guys in. And we've talked about it before when we've seen documentaries of players, but it's fun to see players that you know of in an environment that they're not normally in. And so in this case, it's these three huge football players that they're combined with Katie Nolan, who's a sports commentator and a former actress who I can't even remember her name. But and so it's really funny to see these three humongous beings with these two tiny white women uh, uh, bacon next to him. But and I was commenting to Ashley. I was saying when I was watching DK Metcalf talk to what's the guy's name? The Paul Hollywood. Talk to Paul Hollywood and and the other woman there. He's being so polite. He's being such a Southern guy, like yes sir and yes ma'am, and very friendly and laid back and everything. And he even says it to the camera. He says, the guy I am on the field is kind of just a character I create." Because you see him on the field and uh, he's really intense. He gets some personal foul penalties on sportsmanlike conduct penalties that I'm sure Cody hates when he does with the Seahawks there sometimes. And he does all these really intense things. But watching him in this environment and him in particular, I was just like, this is weird seeing this guy just being so nice and so polite and just like someone that I would say I could hang out with that guy. That guy seems like a pretty cool laid back dude. Uh, but and it was cool to hear him say that the guy on the field is not me. That's not me. This is more me. I'm much more laid back. I'm much more shy, and that kind of thing. And I enjoy seeing those things. And so I think it's still on downstairs, so I don't know who won. But it was fun watching it for a little bit. So
Yeah, we watched it a day ago or something, or I'm not a day or two ago, something like that. But yeah, and definitely enjoyed it and kind of had that same reaction you're having. I think is fun. Also, like you're saying, these three big guys with also wearing these like pink aprons, something kind of baking and stuff. And so, but yeah, with what you mentioned with DK, I think it's really interesting and. In a way, I think I could understand it. I feel like they need to almost create a character for them to kind of function outside of that because football is although it's a big part of their life, it's also a small part of their life. You know what I mean? It's their job, it's their career, it's what they're going to do every day. Yes, but it's not who they are. Just like you know, Dustin's not just a beer salesman or whatever you do. Scott's not just a I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even sure what you do. So that's like my point. That what you do doesn't make just who you are. It's just a part of who you are. And so I think it's kind of interesting. It's something that they probably do. They have to kind of for their own mental safeguarding, kind of create something to help themselves through all of the fame they have to deal with as well. So, but yeah, it was an interesting show. It was fun.
Yeah, Cody, I was gonna comment something very similarly. As we got to remember that this is their job, right? It's the way that they make a living. It's not who they are. They show up to the office. They have hours that they work, and their job happens to be publicly broadcast everywhere else, and so I always get bothered by how serious some fans take sports to the point of either insulting the player or insulting other fans, and becoming even violent over the outcome of a game. It's something maybe all of our wives had said to us all the same. It's like, it's just a game. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. And so, yeah, it's just the thought that, yeah, this is just their job, and who they are away from their job is different. We have, call it, different personalities when we show up at our jobs than we are they were different than who we are at home. And so that's good. I maybe a slight, tangent here, but, I think about music, and the bands that I like to follow. And there's, one of these bands of, heavy metal, super scary. And I know that one of the band leaders says that he's the biggest Ariana Grande fan ever. I'm like, you do metal music. Like, what do you mean? And again, that's their job. It's not, they're different on the inside.
Nice comments. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Super Bowl.
Really quick before we do that,
Yeah.
there's on the side of news, if I can, for the NFL, there's a little bit of news that is coming in as we speak as well. But first off, early this morning, Virginia Hollis, the Chicago Bears owner, died at 102 years old. And so that's the first thing, and automatically makes you wonder. The ownership's probably going to stay in the family, but who does it go to next? Kind of a thing. But the main thing is processing who she was as a person and just kind of wishing their family condolences. Second thing is NFL honors is going on right now, and some of the notes to take from that right now is the offensive rookie of the year is Jaden Daniels, to the shock of no one. And defensive player of the year is Patrick Surtain. And then just now got a notification that offensive player of the year is Saquon Barkley.
Oh no! Again, shocker.
Yeah, we were hoping for MVP though. Like that's offensive rookie of the year is kind of a slap in the face. Sorry, not rookie. Offensive player of the year is almost kind of a slap in the face to his performance.
Well, yeah, and it's just the offensive player of the year used to be you used to be able to win both, right? The MVP and offensive player of the year. Now, essentially, the offensive player of the year is the best non-quarterback. That's exactly what it is now. So
yeah, Yep. Football is a sport where quarterbacks throw to other people. Like that's the sport of football. But anyway, not to switch back over, but all of the all-stars for NBA have been selected and also sorted into their different teams, which is a different all-star format this year that we can discuss, next week during the actual all-star week. But anyway, there's that too.
Okay. Yeah, I think we did talk about the new all-star game variation a couple of weeks or maybe a month ago, but we should definitely talk about it again while it's going on. Okay. Sharing this one. Do you all see the Super Bowl Lex screen? Eagles and Chiefs rematch from 2 years ago, where these two teams played in that one as well. In that game, it was a wild back and forth game where the Chiefs won by 3 points, which is what they're essentially programmed to do. They win by 3 points, no more, no less.
Keyword win.
Yeah. So again, we just see who they defeated. Obviously, Eagles have played one more game than the Chiefs did. This is what they did in their previous games. This is kind of what to look at, and where I really want to focus in on some of the analysis here is when the Chiefs are on offense, and we've talked about the struggles on the left side of that offensive line. No left tackle, and so they've moved Joe Tooney out to left tackle, who's normally guard, and he plays really good tackle for a guard, which means he's not a very good tackle. But also he's one of the best. He probably is the best left guard in the NFL. But you're moving him out of that position, and so you bring in a backup, and so suddenly by moving him out to left tackle because you had the worst players available at that position, you're hurting both of those positions. And so the left side of that offensive line is a problem spot against the Eagles, who are the best defense in the NFL this year, and their particular strength is up front. So that's the one matchup I want to focus in on offense. We're going to take obviously a little bit more time talking about the Super Bowl. So let's stay on the screen and talk about this when the Chiefs are on offense and the Eagles are on defense.
So to address the issue with the offensive line, and the Chiefs' offense, Andy Reid's offense, is designed to get rid of the ball fast. 2 seconds or less. That's to nullify blitzes. It's to nullify all these things. That you're not throwing the ball more than 5 yards down the field usually. And so I think that in a way the defensive line of the Eagles is it's not as impactful as it would have been against maybe other teams, unless the Eagles can figure out on their linebacker and defensive backcourt in order to take that and to force Mahomes to go to a second, third, or fourth options, which then can force more sacks. Mahomes is also really good at running to his right and throwing accurately while on the run, especially to his right. And so that's another thing, that if he's escaping from the left side, there's going to be a little bit of extra time there. So I don't think it's as impactful maybe as you're making it out to be, but it really depends on the other players. Can they step in a way that forces Mahomes and Andy Reid to adjust past what they're really, really good at? And if they can, then yeah, it's going to be a problem.
I think I agree a little more with Dustin's side of view. I mean, I think if the Chiefs are forced in a situation where they have to hold on to the ball for a while or something like that, then yeah, I would agree that they're going to be in trouble. But I mean, this is Andy Reid's offense, and he's so smart, he's so innovative. He's going to find a quick solution, and that's admittedly what's so frustrating. Also about them is how good he is as a coach. I was talking to a friend of mine today, about the Super Bowl, and he said, while the players on the team for the Chiefs are good, that's not the key. It's the coaches. That's really what it is. It's Andy Reid and it's Steve Spagnuolo. That's what's making this team so good. So I think I agree a little bit with more on Dustin's side that while it's an issue, it's not going to be presenting as much as one because they're able to make fixes so fast to whatever it is they need to do. But if the Eagles can find a way to force them to, stay, contain Mahomes, make him hold on the ball a little bit, then the Eagles might find a key to the game.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna switch topics and talk about a Chiefs strength here in a second because I mentioned an Eagles strength. But last week, Cody, you talked to Nick Sirianni about what to do, right? And so I'm going to call Vic Fangio right now and tell him how to do this because it's the same game plan that the Buccaneers used when they beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And Dustin, you mentioned it. It's to blitz off the right side and force him left. You got to force him left, and so I think that's what they should do is blitz off that right side and force him to the area he doesn't want to go to, and then you have a spy guy, probably Zach Bond here, who's going to make sure that he doesn't escape out of that. And so you're spying him on the left side and you're blitzing from the right. You're forcing him to stay in the pocket and make throws from there. Patrick Mahomes is still an all-star like a Hall of Fame caliber player. He can still make those throws. He can still win the game from that position, but it's going to be a lot harder if you keep him contained in that pocket like that. So call Vic Fangio and tell him. And if I know this as someone that's not working in the NFL, I bet he knows this. But so that's what I would do though. So
if he doesn't, I'm not sure he should be having his job.
Yeah. Now again, I've talked about kind of the Eagles' strength and their point of what to do. The Chiefs, where the Eagles can get in trouble, is that the Chiefs are so good on third and fourth down, particularly third down. What the Chiefs can do, because of the problems on the other side of the ball with the Eagles running the football, the Chiefs can just milk that clock all the way down. They can spend so much time picking up these third down conversions, keeping that ball, and there's no one better in the NFL than Patrick Mahomes on third down. There is no quarterback that's better in the NFL on third down than he is. He just has this switch that he's somewhat able to say, okay, on first and second down, I was just kind of playing around, but third down, I'm turning it on. I need to actually have a play here, so I'm going to get it. And that's a problem for the Eagles. If they can't come up with something that's going to get him off the field on third down, the Chiefs are going to go down the field and they're going to score every time, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, but they're going to score. And so they have to find a way to disrupt that because I think that's the Chiefs' biggest strength when they're on offense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We've seen that, all year. And I think that goes back to the strategy of, that they're okay with a play only netting 4 yards. They're like, okay, because now it's 2nd and 6. Oh, got another 3 yards. Well, guess what? Now it's 3rd and 3. Like my whole playbook is wide open, versus all these teams that are trying to throw it 15 yards downfield, and you got 2nd and 10, then you got a holding call, and then you run it, and it's 3rd and 17, and you have 3 plays you can call, right? This is the strength of the Chiefs, is that they're okay with small gains all the way down the field and having a 15-play drive. They're really good at that.
Yeah. Okay, let's move to when the Eagles are on offense. I'm going to start again with the Eagles' strengths. Obviously, the Eagles are the best rushing team in the NFL, the best running team. And while you just said that the Chiefs are completely content with getting 15-play drives, the Eagles are completely content in getting 1-play drives, 75-yard runs from Saquon Barkley. The Chiefs have uncharacteristically this year, and more so in the playoffs, struggled against the run from other teams. And so now you're putting them up against the best rushing team in the NFL and the best running back in the NFL and the best offensive line in the NFL. I think the Chiefs are in a world of trouble when the Eagles are on offense, because if the Chiefs are throwing out their same offensive strategy or defensive strategy, I mean, the Eagles should be able to run all over them. Steve Spagnuolo will have different things up his pocket, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just from that point of view, I think the Chiefs' defense is in trouble with the strengths that the Eagles have.
Cody?
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, that's what makes sense, and on paper it looks that way, but and I want to go with that, because going any other direction makes me feel sick to my stomach, and I think that what I don't even know how to say this. While everything you say is true, and Saquon Barkley is just a stud of a running back, they have an amazing offensive line. They have just great offensive rhythm. This is Steve Spagnuolo's defense you're going against. It's the almost exact mirror of Andy Reid with his offense, how innovative he is. Steve Spagnuolo is just innovative. That's what he is. He does with a great defensive scheme. So I'm really kind of curious. I'm excited to see how this matches up, because like you said, on paper, Saquon and the Eagles should be running all over them, but we know that it never really works out that way. They always figure something out, and so I'm curious to see that happen. Now, of course, if Saquon does run all over them, that'll be great. I would love seeing that. I just don't think it's going to happen the way it looks like it will.
Yeah, everyone and their grandma knows that the Eagles win this game by running the ball. Like, that's we everybody knows that, and I'm Cody, I'm feeling a little less, a little more realistic, or a little less comfortable than maybe you communicated. Maybe because we're opposite. You're like, oh, I've got to be a little bit worried, and hopefully it goes the other way. I'm maybe feeling the same way, and that that innovation that Spags has is when you forced the other team into a tough situation, right? This team is so good at running the ball that, again, if they have a 2nd and 3, I don't know how you can be. It's really hard to be innovative on 2nd and 3 as a defender, because the entire playbook is open. You think about what the Chiefs did against the Bills on that 4th down. It's because you knew what they were doing. They're throwing it 15 yards down the field. Like, you knew what was going to do. If the Eagles have a good rushing attack, it's so hard to predict what they're actually going to do, and that it gives the Eagles the advantage. And so it's really all on these linebackers, Chenal, Bolton, Tranquil, on being able to shoot the gaps and get to Barkley or Hurts, whoever's running, early, in order to force a 2nd and 9 or a 3rd and 7, something that allows for that innovation to then take place on a blitz or a masked coverage. And so that's me calling up Spags and say, if you'll just tackle him a little bit faster, you'll do better.
Yeah. Cody, you've said his name like this 3 times now, and so we've turned him Italian apparently. Spagnolio. Uh, his name is Steve Spagnolo, but which is probably still Italian, but I don't know. Yeah, right. So I had to mention it. It's funny.
Magnolia, Spaghettios. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Spagnolio. But but on the other side, and you've both mentioned it, but Steve Spagnuolo is the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. I don't think there's any question how good of a defensive coordinator he is, and he does exactly what you guys have mentioned. He just comes up with these crazy plays, crazy coverages, crazy schemes that no one is expecting in those moments. And the crazy part of that play that you just mentioned with the Bills is that he left guys wide open to do that. Uh, and if Josh Allen simply had the time or the ability to realize that guys on the other side were wide open, it could have been a touchdown. But Spagnuolo did that knowing the risk because he believed that Josh Allen wouldn't do that, and he was right. And so there's a calculated risk that's involved in what Spagnuolo does, and I think he's going to bring that for this game. He usually does it against the pass with a pass rush. He's going to have to dig into his bag of tricks here to figure out how to do it against the run. But I bet, and I don't know what yet, but I bet we're going to see something a little bit different from Spagnuolo than we've seen before on how to defend against this run game, and it's going to force the Eagles to adjust on what they do. Maybe it's that Hurts is going to throw the ball a little bit more, which is what the Chiefs would hope that he does. Maybe it's that they do a different sort of run where they're more an optional offense, something like that. But I guarantee that Spagnuolo is going to have something up his sleeve that's going to force the Eagles to have to adjust. And if the Eagles can't do that, then the Chiefs win this game. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think again, talking to Nick Sirianni is don't get too worried about it. Like, don't try this double bluff where you're like, okay, this whole first drive, all we're gonna do is pass the ball because we're bluffing. Like I wouldn't want him to try to get too fancy in order to try to do this double bluff. It's who you are. You're a running team. If Jalen Hurts throws 30 passes in the Super Bowl, Chiefs win.
Yeah. Okay. On to the next slide, which is this. Yancey has sent in a score that I have to find real quick. Here we go. So Yancey's going to be our first one to go, and he has said the Eagles are winning this game in overtime with a Saquon Barkley run, and he said 27-21. So Cody, that means you're up next.
Okay. It's interesting because I guess to preface this, out of all the teams that were coming to the Super Bowl, this is the combination I'm least excited for. However, while I'm looking at this at the same time, these are two fun teams to watch play together. And so I think it's like me forcing myself to look at the bright side, if you will, of these two teams playing in the Super Bowl again. So it should be an exciting game. I'm gonna say that the Chiefs stay in postseason form. They're good, and defense is solid. They show up like normal, and I say that the Eagles get about 150 yards rushing on them. I think it's gonna be back and forth. I'm gonna say that the Eagles do win this game. I think it's gonna be on literally the final drive of the game, and it's going to come from a screen pass to Saquon Barkley, and just putting it in his hands as a last help us kind of thing on a third or fourth down with a few seconds left. Eagles are going to win this game. Let's say it's 28-26.
Dustin?
Chiefs win. They get the three-peat. And I think I'll break the cycle a little bit. Final score 24-20. They win by 4 instead of 3.
Okay. I think this is a 3-point game either way. Whatever happens, whoever wins is winning by 3 points. Whether that's on a walk-off field goal or whether it's on a defensive stand because the team's not in field goal range, it's gonna end like that. I think it's gonna be fairly low scoring. Probably what all of us have said in the 20s, and I think that's gonna be where it ends up. I think at the end of the day, the Eagles are just a bad matchup for the Chiefs in this game. I think that the Chiefs have that special ability to make this game closer than it maybe should be on paper, and they will. But I do think, and I have worked my way through this a lot and trying to say, okay, am I picking this because of bias, or am I picking it because I think I actually believe it? And I've gone back and forth, and whether you believe me or not, I actually believe this, that the Eagles are a better team, that they're just a bad matchup in this game for the Chiefs, and so I'm going to take a final score of 24-21.
You guys are probably all right that the Eagles are, better team, have the better matchups and all that. And I'll completely say that I'm choosing mine off of bias. So
Sure.
I'm not afraid to admit that, but, just because I'm biased doesn't mean I'm wrong.
No, not at all. And to be perfectly clear, seeing a team actually complete the three-peat would be pretty fun to see. Regardless of wanting to see different teams win or not, it would be kind of fun to see that kind of history being made. So last slide here is the scores. So there were 12 games so far. Yancey has led by getting 8 of the 12 right. Cody and Dustin 7 each, and me just 6. The +1 or +3 is getting the score closest to the actual score, or in some cases, 1 for me and 1 for Dustin getting it right on. And so those are those final scores. Yancey, the only way, nope, never mind. Yancey has won this completely because Yancey and Cody had the same pick in this one. So Cody can get within 1 point, but that's it. Dustin can get within 1 point, but that's it. And I can get within 3 points, and that's it. So, yeah. So, okay, I'm going to stop share this one and move over to the next one. Do you see the Big 12 slide now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to slideshow. Again, this is going to be as quick as it was last time, except there's one less team in the Big 12 than there was in the ACC. So probably a little bit quicker. Just reviewing this conference and talking about it from a analytical standpoint. So starting with Arizona, obviously they were really good last year, and whatever reason, probably the head coach change, they were dismal this year, especially on offense. Finishing 4-8. Here's their stars here, but head coach Brent Brennan had a really difficult year trying to follow Jed Fish. So again, if you want to talk about any of these teams in particular, you stop me and talk. Arizona State, they were universally picked to finish last in the Big 12. Can you believe that? Because they won the Big 12. They beat Iowa State to win the Big 12 championship game. They went to the college football playoff where they lost that crazy double overtime game to Texas in that college football playoff game. Head coach Kenny Dillingham has a future there. All of these players look really good. Cam Scatterbo probably going to the NFL, but I don't know. Has he already declared? I haven't heard that.
I think he has. Yeah, I think he's going. I don't think he has any eligibility left.
Okay.
But the one thing I wanted to say is it's kind of sad to me though that it took this kind of run for this team for everyone to know who he was. You know, I knew he was because we're in the Big 12. We were in the Pac-12 together. You know, and I kind of knew he was from last year a little bit. And I've been following him for most of the year, but everyone didn't know who he was until they played Texas.
Yeah. So Arizona State probably set up for pretty good success depending on the fall off in that running back position. So Baylor goes 8-5. They lost the Texas Bowl to LSU, but a pretty good season, winning 8 games this year, going 8-4 in the regular season. Their stars and Dave Aranda saving his job, honestly, by going 8-5 this year. BYU had a fantastic season. They went 11-2, including winning the Alamo Bowl over Colorado. They were 9-0 at one point in the season before losing 2 of their last 3 games, but then destroying Colorado in that Alamo Bowl game. Jake Retzloff looked really good. He threw a few too many interceptions, but he looked really good. Head coach Kalani Sitake has signed a new contract that, if I'm not mistaken, is for the next 75 years. No, but he came in with the same situation as Baylor's coach, that if he doesn't do well, he might not be gone. Instead, he overachieves completely. 11-2 season. He's there for as long as he wants to be at this point. So.
Yeah, I guess we do believe in eternal life. So.
That's right. UCF, Central Florida, 4-8 this year. Not a very good season, but you can see some of the stars and some of the schedule here. They won their first 3 games, lost their next 5, won 1, and then lost 3. So just a tough season. Cincinnati. Go ahead.
Looking at those scores, it's like they either score 40 or 14. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to say RJ Harvey is also another really good running back and is probably going to be taking the draft. I'm not sure when. But look at how many touchdowns he scored this year alone by himself, 22 touchdowns. So he's a touchdown scorer.
Cincinnati went 5-7 this year. Brandon Sorsby, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. Just not quite good enough to qualify for a bowl game. Colorado, another really solid season. Last year, they weren't bowl eligible. They won that really important first game against TCU, and everyone thought, oh my gosh, Colorado's going to do everything. And then they didn't win very many games after that. This year, though, they went 9-4, looked like they could be in line for a Big 12 championship game before losing that final game to Kansas that knocked them out of it. And then they did beat Oklahoma State, but then they lost to BYU in that game. They're losing Shedeur Sanders, who has a very real chance of being the number 1 overall draft pick in this coming draft. Travis Hunter is also going to the NFL. So they're losing their biggest players. Who knows what they'll look like next year?
Oh, they have the strongest recruiting plan in history. I mean, it's I don't think that there's a player that doesn't want to play for primetime.
Yeah, I think so.
It's all about the NIL. It's whether I don't think there's very much NIL in Boulder, and so it's really where else is that coming from?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Houston went 4-8 as well. One of the worst teams in offense, 14 points a game on average. It's just they were awful on offense, awful. And you can see that here. There's 2 zeros in a row. They were shut out 2 weeks in a row. There's a 3. There's 2 7s, or they won 1. But anyway, so yeah, Donovan Smith threw 4 touchdowns all season. that's not a very good stat line to have. Iowa State went to the Big 12 championship game, so they're always good. 11-3 season. They won the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Miami in a shootout. Rocco Beck, 22 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Just a really good season for Matt Campbell, who's also going to be there as long as he wants to be. Kansas went 5-7. At one point, they were 3-6 of the season, and then they won 3 straight games against Big 12 championship caliber teams. They beat Iowa State, then they beat BYU, then they beat Colorado. So they were a lot better than you thought they were, even as a 5-7 team. So,
yeah, I mean, those were 3 teams that were going to the playoff.
Yeah,
gone.
Right.
They were the
spoiler. Yeah. So Kansas State went 9-4 and won the Rate Bowl against Rutgers. Avery Johnson, pretty good season from Chris Kleeman and the Wildcats here. Oklahoma State, probably the most underachieving team in college football last year. A lot of us had them picked to either go to or win the Big 12 championship game. Instead, they go 3-9 and don't do much at all. They lose. They win their first 3 games. They don't win a single game in the Big 12. They completely go winless in the Big 12. Ollie Gordon, who was a Heisman Trophy candidate last year, finishes with less than 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. So just a really, really tough season for Mike Gundy. So
I just don't understand how that happens. Like, I mean, can it really all be an offensive line? And if so, was that the issue? I mean, you don't reach what was it? He almost had 2,000 yards, I think, last year. You don't reach that just because you have a good line,
Yeah.
And so, what the heck happened? I don't get it.
Yeah, I can't explain it either. TCU got back on track. Pretty good season after last year being really down after going to the national championship the year before. But they went 9-4, destroyed Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl. Josh Hoover played a really good season, 23 touchdowns and 10 picks. Sonny Dykes looking good again. Texas Tech, did you want to say something? Okay, no, that was never mind. Sorry. Texas Tech goes 8-5. They lost Liberty Bowl to Arkansas. They did finish 5th in points per game and 9th in yards per game. Really good offense down there in Lubbock. Baron Morton, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Taj Brooks, over 1,500 yards rushing. I think he's also going to the NFL this year. And Utah, obviously the whole situation with what's his bucket, the quarterback that is going to be most known for not playing for Utah. Yeah, Cam Rising. When he went out, they didn't have a quarterback to replace him. Tried Isaiah, or is it Isaiah or Isaac Wilson? Isaac Wilson, Zach's brother. Didn't work out too well for them. You can see 10 touchdowns, 11 interceptions on the year. Micah Bernard, over 1,000 yards rushing. Pretty good defense, as you can see back here. Top quarter of the league, 26th in points, 30th in yards. Always good defense under Kyle Whittingham, but offense was in the hundreds. So just first year in a long time that Utah had a bad enough season to not even qualify for a bowl game. So
what was the quarterback's name that didn't play?
Rising.
Did he at least like graduate? Like he's got free education, right? He's gonna graduate.
What's funny is he actually qualifies for still one more year of eligibility because of his injury this year, which would be an 8th year, but it's not going to be at Utah. He's not. He's off the roster officially. He just hasn't announced what he's doing. So it's crazy.
Like a land surveyor or something.
Because like 2 or 3 years ago, he was being touted as a future first round pick, and okay. And lastly, West Virginia finished 6-7, lost the Frisco Bowl to Memphis. Just kind of ho-hum season. Neil Brown was fired at the end of the year, so a new coach is coming in at West Virginia. Okay, this is how it looks. It's not going to be pretty. Who would have picked Iowa State and Arizona State to play in the Big 12 championship game? No one, obviously. Most of us had Utah and Oklahoma State. Cody had Kansas State in there. Yancey had Arizona and Kansas, neither one of which actually played in a bowl game. And so actually the only one on that whole board that actually played in a bowl game is Cody's little Kansas State right there. No one else did. So we really missed the mark on this one. Okay,
but
that's better. I would prefer this over, we all get it right. So
yeah. Exactly what I was going to say is parity is really where it's best, in my opinion. Is the more parity, the more exciting, the more you want to watch, which means the more business, the more money. So it's just the better parity, the better.
Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to say about the Big 12, its teams, or the conference as a whole? All right. The last thing, and maybe I don't want to do it now, but we have an ongoing Madden tournament, and we were going to share some of the scores and highlights and things like that. I think we're getting too close to 8:15 to actually do that. So, but I do want to capture all of the scores and who's won and which games we still have left. We can do that offline, but just know our listeners who we think that you're listening, and please share our podcast with other people. Please and let us know what you want us to talk about. We can have mailbag stuff. We can have all these other things that we want to be more engaging with people. And part of that is playing these games together, Madden and 2K and things like that, to really try to drive home the idea that sports is a community. Sports is an opportunity to grow closer to competitors as well as people that you love and care about. And so that's what we're doing with that. And we've played some really good games so far, and we'll talk about that probably next week. We'll review the Super Bowl next week. Obviously, we'll review the Big Ten in college football, and we'll probably talk about our Madden tournament. Is there anything else that we want to talk about right now?
Well said.
I guess just a little last few things. The comeback player of the year is Joe Burrow, and the defensive rookie of the year is Jared Verse with the LA Rams.
Both good choices. Yeah. And we haven't heard the MVP yet, though, right?
Not yet.
So
That'll be the last one. I think they're going to announce the coach of the year here soon, and then they'll do the MVP.
the coach of the year, I don't know why Dan Quinn is not getting recognition yet. He should be the coach of the year for the Commanders. What he's done over there. So
Yeah, it's either Dan Quinn or the Vikings guy, right?
Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, definitely one of those two guys. Yeah, and MVP, we've all heard it's either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, right? And that's what we've heard. But,
yeah, that's interesting because there's a lot of the media focused towards Josh Allen, right? And he'd be my pick to win it. Although Lamar Jackson has had like twice the better season than when he won it last year, and so yeah.
No, it's crazy that the narrative takes over, right? The narrative is that Josh Allen should win it, and while I would love Josh Allen to win it, I think that Lamar Jackson is the best player in the NFL. He deserves to win the MVP again, based on he could have won the most improved player this year.
Yeah.
So he was that good this year. So, yeah, but I think Josh Allen is going to win it. It's just the narrative that took over. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit next week too. But thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you next week, and we'll review the Super Bowl.